As mothers, we're often told to enjoy every moment, as though joy should always be the default. If you're not loving each and every second of motherhood, it feels like something's off. And if you're in a season of things honestly feeling hard and not really enjoyable at all, then what is that supposed to mean about you as a mother? But here's the thing, we're not made to enjoy every moment. And that narrative that we should only keeps us feeling badly about ourselves when we don't. So that's what we're going to be breaking down on this episode. Welcome to the Worthy Mother podcast, where we discuss all things identity, self-compassion, and fulfillment within and beyond motherhood. I'm Emily Rose Hardy, a mindset and self-love coach for moms. I am a firm believer that to be able to take care of our children, we must take care of ourselves first. This is not a parenting podcast. No, this is a podcast where we will challenge the societal expectations of what it means to be a mom, demystify the perfect mom myth, and learn to love ourselves. You are worthy, mama. Let's do this. Hello, welcome to the Worthy Mother podcast. I'm so happy you're here. If you are somebody who is tuning in week after week, I just really want to thank you and let you know how much I appreciate your presence here and that you are taking time out of your day to focus on you. I mean, that's what this is all about, right? And if you are new here, welcome. This is a space created for you to really help you feel just more aligned in your motherhood experience and know that the struggles, you're not alone in them. This conversation that I have in store for you today is something that has been on my heart a lot, really at all times throughout my motherhood experience. It's been something that I think about. But recently, as you know, things have just been kind of hard in my life. I've been feeling like a little bit in a funk in a lot of different ways. And it's something that I want to talk about because I think so often we feel like we are supposed to be feeling joy at every moment. And, you know, there's things we can do to cultivate joy in our life. And really, we want to be enjoying our children and enjoying our motherhood experience. But if we're not, if that joy is not there, that doesn't mean we're broken. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with us. And when we hear this message over and over again, that we should enjoy every moment, like we're supposed to enjoy every moment. And if we're not, we're going to miss something. And, you know, we're throwing this all away. I think that can be really damaging. And so I want to kind of just counteract that with something a little different today. Something that I think about is how life doesn't just like even out when we have kids. Obviously, we knew it wouldn't because life is complicated and life is, you know, just full of ups and downs. That's really just kind of how life goes. Even as kids, you know, we experience the ups and downs. Even if you had a pretty like solid childhood that, you know, was pretty sheltered from things. But as we grow, that becomes, for most of us, that becomes more and more apparent, right? There's ups and downs. There's seasons of our lives where we are on this high, and there's seasons of our lives where we're on a low, whether that's because of mental health or, you know, just changes in what's going on. And, you know, things happen, right? Like that's life. Obviously, we knew that having kids wasn't going to make that just stop. It's just going to even out. But I think that for me, I pretended it would. I just figured like, okay, when I have kids, I'm going to have it all figured out and be a real adult. And we'll be able to kind of just like sustain feeling good about things, loving it all. And I see that for so many moms when they're not enjoying something or something's hard and they feel so guilty about it. They feel like they're doing something wrong and they should be more grateful or something, right? And it's like we're fooling ourselves into thinking that we are supposed to enjoy every moment. And we literally hear people say that, right? You know, I think that's kind of a joke we get sometimes of like the older grandmother figure looking back and saying like, oh, I remember when mine were this little, like make sure to enjoy every moment. And just how, whether that's something someone's actually said to you or not, you've heard it before, right? That you should be enjoying every moment. And the thing about it is like not every moment is enjoyable. And really not every period of our lives, not every season of our lives is going to be one where we're going to have the capacity to feel like immense joy. We're not going to love every little thing that happens in motherhood. There's going to be things that are hard for some situations. There's going to be things that are really, really hard, whether it's motherhood specific or something that's going on in life and you're dealing with it while also being a mother, right? It's really complex. It can be a really challenging thing to navigate. If you're navigating grief or navigating heartbreak or navigating challenges with your child, of course, you're not going to enjoy every moment of it. Really seeing motherhood as like a layer of our lives. Like our life, once we have kids, continues on. And yes, we have these new joys and also we have these new complexities. There's these new complexities when we have kids that come along with being a mother, right? So motherhood does radically change us, but it doesn't just like change our lives wholly, right? It changes us. We become now a mother and we have these different priorities and things, but like our life keeps going underneath it all, kind of in a sense, right? It's like you're still going to have those ups and downs, just like you did before. And we live through those ups and downs, but now in this role as a mother, and we also have these little humans to care for and keep safe and create the best life for, right? All while going through the trials and tribulations of being a human ourselves and navigating complex lives. We are living in a flawed and unpredictable world, and we are dealing with our own emotions, which we may or may not have the skills and tools to regulate completely, right? And, mental health can be a challenge if you're dealing with mental health issues or if someone in your life is. Physical health, right? When we throw in physical health to the batch, if you're dealing with physical health problems or your child is or somebody in your life is. Relationships, there's so much that can happen in our relationships that can just add, again, another layer of challenge and so much more. Your jobs, your relationship with your family, all of it. Life is so complex. And I don't think we tend to give ourselves credit for just how much we go through as human beings, let alone also raising children while navigating our lives as these individuals, right? So today I want to acknowledge that. I want to make it abundantly clear that there's nothing wrong with you if you don't love every moment of motherhood. There is so much going on in our lives, and the best we can do is face it all with self-compassion because we will never get it right, whatever that means 100% of the time, right? So, in an effort to normalize not enjoying every moment, I want to just talk about some of the factors to why you may be struggling, why you may be, not feeling that joy on a regular basis, and why there might be like things that you can point out, like, I don't enjoy this. I don't like this. This is not something that I love to have in my life. And yeah, maybe I'm tolerating it. Maybe I'm putting up with it. Maybe I'm doing my best, but like, it kind of sucks. Because I think when we can draw the attention to that and normalize the fact that that may be true for you, and, I'll kind of point out some things in my own life, it like brings a little bit more of like, yeah, of course I'm not going to enjoy every moment. These aren't things that are enjoyable. And I don't have to force myself into that. Again, of course, it's not just saying like, I'm going to sit in the suck and let everything suck and let these things that are complex and challenging ruin my life and never be happy. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. But it's just kind of the releasing of the guilt when there are things that aren't enjoyable, when there are things that you're just like, I don't like this. I don't want this to be the way it is. And knowing that we can do things sometimes to counteract that and to, make things better, make our situations better, learn to cultivate joy. Yes, there are things we can do, but also acknowledging that there's nothing wrong with you for having the feelings in the first place, that something isn't great, right? So I'm going to talk first about motherhood specific factors and then kind of get into life factors with the lens of like, we're going through life, but we're also mothers, and just talk a little bit more of like the nitty gritty, because there may be something in here that sticks out of like, yes, that's something that's been really hard for me. And like, I feel guilty not loving it, and acknowledging that like, it's okay. So with the motherhood specific factors, like all the responsibilities, I know for me, this has been a really challenging part of motherhood, and like trying to not only take care of myself, but take care of my kids and their needs. And really like the responsibility side of it is it has been a lot harder than I thought it would be as a mother. I thought like once I had kids, I would just figure it out and, getting all their doctor's appointments squared away and figuring out what time they need to be at school on the late start day and all these like pieces that we're constantly like having to understand our own responsibilities when it comes to our kids. And it's not just like okay, you're in my home, I have to feed you and keep you safe and whatever in the home. But then they grow up and they go to preschool, they go to school, they go to doing all these things, they're going to sports. And like, we have to keep track of the responsibilities that come with those things. And for some people, that's super easy because they've had it figured out for themselves. And now they're just adding something else in the mix and like they thrive with that. For others like me, that's something that like, I'm like, this is actually straight up challenging to figure it all out, keep it straight, keep it all organized in my mind, and like take responsibility for my responsibilities has been really hard. And it's like, yeah, that wasn't something I liked doing for myself before. It was really hard for me. So why would I just like love it now? Why would I love having to manage all these things now that I have kids? It's hard. It's not the most fun thing to do. Do I love having my kids? Yes. Do I love getting to like bring them to soccer practice and do these things? Most of the time, yes, right? But all of the other things that come with it that I'm still figuring out are challenging. And maybe one day it will become easier and I won't have to think about it. It won't take up all that mental space. But for now, it's challenging. And if you're in that too, whatever it is, right? You have responsibilities for your kids. And if there's things that you're like, this sucks, this is really hard. I think a lot about moms who have kids with special needs, whatever that looks like, right? But having like additional doctor's appointments or therapy appointments and things like that, and not feeling necessarily bitter about it, although I'm sure that is an experience, but just like having more on your plate can be really hard. And you can be grateful that you have the opportunity to have these services and things and still, just acknowledge that like there might be other things that you wish you could do with your time, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with you for not loving that you have to take your kid to multiple appointments every week, right? There's nothing wrong with us for not loving all of that, all of the responsibility, right? There's nothing wrong with you for that. There's also the child factors when it comes to motherhood and like enjoying things. I don't think we talk about this enough, how our kids are their own individual human being and how we can love them with every ounce of our being and do anything for them, right? Like I would do anything for my kids in terms of like their safety and keeping them healthy and happy. Unless what's keeping them happy is like, something that I don't want to do. But there are definitely pieces of, the way that me and my oldest communicate that I don't love. I find myself very triggered by my oldest, and this is something that I have been navigating since he was born and will probably continue to navigate because our personalities sometimes do not mesh the best. And, trying to understand where that's coming from for me, there's been a lot of guilt around that of like, I do love everything about my child, right? I don't want my child to lose the strong-willed nature and things like that. But also like, I don't love the triggers necessarily. I don't love the way that I react to things. And, sometimes it's like, this is really hard. This sucks. What I'm going through sucks. Like there's a lot of complex feelings around that. And I think this is something that I've talked to so many moms who are dealing with similar situations, right? Maybe they look different than mine, but it's like understanding that like our kids are unique individuals. They are. They will continue to be. And so understanding that like with any relationship, although our relationship with our child, we're with them a lot more, we're responsible for a lot more, we have to make decisions for them a lot more, right, than any other relationship in our life typically. And that can be really complex. And as with any relationship, navigating those complexities can be really hard on us sometimes. And I want to acknowledge that not every mom is going to relate to that, to what I'm saying there. But if you do, I hope that there's some amount of like peace and just the ability to be more compassionate with yourself, knowing that you're not alone in experiencing those challenges. I really do know from experience, from conversations, that this is something that other moms do deal with. And we do not talk about it enough, right? We do not talk about how hard it can be raising kids with personalities that can be triggering and can be challenging, right? There's also, again, like just the needs of your children. All of our kids have different needs. I think that's really important to understand. And sometimes it can be really challenging to navigate their needs. I think about some of the big things that there's a lot of resources out there helping moms in these areas, like sleep. Some of our kids have a lot more needs around sleep. They don't just go to sleep when you lay them down, and that can be really tricky and challenging. There's kids who have a lot of needs around food. So whether that's like needs having to do with allergies, right? Like that's going to be like a whole other safety concern that you're going to have to deal with, which can be really hard, right? But also just kids who are more, quote, picky, and navigating that and trying to figure out, how do I do good by my child to make sure that I'm teaching them how to eat food that nourishes their body, and the challenges that come with that. And, there can be like the feeling that this isn't something that I enjoy doing, right? Like the struggle can be not so enjoyable figuring those things out. And so I think just really acknowledging that, like, we are allowed to have feelings about things related to our children that aren't just all happy go lucky, joyful, right? There can be things that are hard. There can be things that really test us. And it does not take away from the fact that we love our children and would do anything for them. And I think sometimes when we hear things like enjoy every moment, it's like, first of all, if I don't enjoy every moment, am I not present in the moment? Am I not being there for my kid? But then second, it can also feel like, oh, I'm not enjoying some of these things. Do I not love my kid enough? And we can start to like question ourselves and feel like we're not doing enough. We're not enough as a mother because we're having a hard time or we're not loving something. So just really like acknowledging that wherever you're at, however you're feeling, again, not every mom is going to relate to these things, but knowing that there are factors in motherhood with the responsibilities and with just raising unique children that can cause things to be tricky and sometimes not so enjoyable. Now, I also want to address the fact that there are just life factors that can make seasons of life, again, less enjoyable, where you're not going to enjoy every moment. And, as a mother, we have to look at this through the lens of motherhood and how it might impact us showing up in motherhood, and knowing that it's okay if life impacts motherhood because they're not separate, they're intertwined. And it should actually be expected that motherhood's going to impact life, life's going to impact motherhood, again, because they are connected. They're not separate. It's not like motherhood and then the rest of our lives, right? Obviously, we know that, but I think a lot of us do feel like we have to compartmentalize different pieces of our lives, or like it's now just motherhood. And that could be a dangerous way of thinking because it's not just motherhood. There's all these other relationships, all these other things that we have outside of that role that can bring us immense amounts of joy, but also can challenge us and, lead to us feeling not so much joy, lead to us feeling like things are hard. So just to like start off with something that I think is more obvious and understandable is like grief. If you're dealing with grief in your life, whether that's the death of someone that you love or just the loss of like a person in your life that may just be from growing apart or, whatever it is, there's so many factors in our relationships that can cause these kind of struggles and grief. And when you're grieving, we all know there's like the 7 stages of grief. We know that there's things that happen when you're grieving. And so acknowledging that that does impact all areas of your life, it can impact all areas of your life, I should say. And motherhood being a huge part of our life and something that takes up a lot of our energy and time and just like emotional capacity, it very clearly makes sense that if you're grieving, it's going to impact motherhood, right? And learning to like have that grace for ourselves to say, okay, this isn't all separate. It's okay that I'm not enjoying every moment right now because I'm having a hard time because of grief, right? But it's not just grief that can cause those kinds of feelings, right? There's also things like being under immense stress, whether that's from, a job that you have, or again, health issues, mental health issues, trouble with relationships. If you're dealing with issues in your marriage, that can be something that can make it really hard to show up with joy in your life. If you are feeling like you hate your job and you're just about done with it, but maybe haven't figured out the next step yet and you're not sure what to do, that might impact the way that you're showing up at home. Again, this isn't to say that we want to get stuck in feeling a lack of joy. This isn't to say we should just kind of let ourselves marinate in the suckiness and the pity. That's not at all what I'm saying. But I want us to acknowledge the fact that there are life situations that happen. Our lives are not perfect. There are going to be life situations that happen that can kind of knock us off our feet a little bit and make us feel like this does suck. And there's nothing wrong with you if you feel that way. There are ups and downs in life, and there are ups and downs in motherhood, right? So the point of all of that is to say that I want you to know that whatever you're dealing with, if there's things that you're feeling like I'm not enjoying every moment and you're feeling badly about that, to really give yourself the space and grace to know that you are okay, you are enough. And just to acknowledge that it's normal. It's normal to not enjoy every moment of every day and to love every part of motherhood, right? If you enjoy every moment of every day and there's things that are really hard and you're not letting yourself feel sadness or, anger or whatever the emotion is that's not joy, there can be problems that come about from that as well, right? And so acknowledging that this experience of being a human is complex and we feel all these emotions and things, and there's nothing wrong with you for feeling different feelings. It actually is just what we're made to do. I want that to kind of sink in a little bit. But I also want to leave you with something just to take from this episode to really be able to determine when is it time to say, you know what, I want to be enjoying things a little bit more, because again, I don't want you to feel like you just need to stay stuck. That's not what it's about. It's about giving ourselves grace when we are feeling not so great. So something that I recommend doing when you are feeling just bad about something, if you are having a hard time with, let's say you're feeling pretty bad about an experience you're having, trying to get your kid to eat more foods. This is something that I am fully in right now with my kid, trying to navigate being a picky eater and what's my role in that and how do I help him. And it honestly has been really just oh, this is really hard. This is really hard, right? And it's not something I love having to look into and figure out, because honestly, it's just kind of the denial of this, I don't want to have to deal with this, right? And so we are trying to deal with it, but again, it's not my favorite thing. And so we can look at an issue like that and try and understand that the easiest thing may just be to give myself grace, to not try and enjoy the process, because honestly, that's just one more thing. And I have kind of my answer and I just need to stick with it and get through it. And okay, cool. But we can also look at it and see, is this something that I want to enjoy more? Do I want to enjoy this process more? And if the answer is yes, then really looking at how can I enjoy this process more? And there's reframing the thoughts around it that can help us enjoy the process more. So instead of thinking this sucks that I have to do this, which is going to lead to feelings of suckiness, not good feelings, right? Irritation might be one that comes up when you're having a thought like that. We can actually reframe that thought to be something different, right? Maybe we're reframing that thought to be, I get to learn about food with my child. That could make it feel more fun, right? Just reframing it to this is an opportunity to do something and learn something with my kid. Or reframing that thought to be, the efforts that I'm putting in now are going to make it so my child has a healthier relationship with food in the future. That can make it more of an uplifting experience, right? I'm not telling you that if you're having a struggle like that you need to reframe the thoughts. Again, it's something that you want to look at the individual issue, the individual struggle, and say, is this something that I want to work on enjoying more and feeling better about? Or is it something that I'm just going to give myself grace with this to know that it does kind of suck and I'm not happy with it, right? That's just one minor example. Obviously, with everything we've talked about, you could do something where you're reframing things and determining whether you want to reframe. But I hope that that kind of way of looking at it can help you see how you could reframe something and feel better about it. That's a tool that we can use. That thought management is a tool we can use to feel better. And then it impacts how we show up and how we behave and act, and can be really powerful, and just kind of having ripple effects to make our lives more aligned with the feelings we want to be having, right? But again, it's not about fixing everything. It's not about doing that for everything in our life and just showing up completely enjoying every moment, because even though we are told that consistently, told that we should enjoy every moment, it's not realistic. It shouldn't be the goal for us, because we're humans and we have complex emotions, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I hope that this episode has helped you maybe feel a little bit more seen if you are dealing with kind of guilt and shame around having feelings that are not joy when it comes to certain parts of your life or motherhood experience. But I also hope that you can take something from this, just to know that we have choice. We have the agency to decide when we're just going to allow something to suck and when we're going to do something about it, right? And that doesn't mean we can change every situation, but it does mean we can change how we react to the situations through that thought management. Again, I never want to say that that's something you should do for everything. I don't do that for everything. There's things where I'm just like, yeah, this kind of sucks and it's okay, right? Like that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But knowing you have the choice can be really empowering and really helpful, right? For how you show up for yourself and others in life. So with that, I'll see you next week. You are worthy, mama.